So you've got a secret order, a price tag that's already over $1 billion, and troops being deployed on two different continents. We're going to break down a sudden military operation that brings up a really critical question. Who actually has the power to take a nation to war?
So that was the message U.S. troops received on February 28th. Operation Epic Fury against Iran was officially a go. And just like that, the mission shifted from what they were calling deterrence right into active combat. And the scale of this thing, it's just immense. We're talking about 50,000 military personnel mobilized for this conflict.
To support them, you've got this massive air component, 200 fighter jets, not to mention strategic bombers and all the other support aircraft. And then you look out at sea, and the naval power is just wow. 2 full aircraft carrier groups have been sent to the region. That is a serious projection of force.
And that phrase, profound consequence, well, it's already hit home in the most tragic way possible. Casualties were reported in the very first days of the operation.
And beyond the human toll, there's an absolutely extraordinary price tag for taxpayers.
Think about this. In just the first few days, the cost of this operation blew past $1 billion. And get this, a huge chunk of that, $630 million. That was just the cost to transport troops and equipment into the Middle East. That's before a single major engagement.
The hardware itself is also incredibly expensive. 3 F-15E jets were lost to friendly fire, and at $90 million apiece, well, you do the math. That's a staggering loss right there.
And the meter just keeps running. Those 2 aircraft carriers we mentioned earlier, they burn through at least $13 million every single day, just to operate.
Okay, so you've got lives lost and billions of dollars being spent, which begs the question, how was this war legally justified in the first place?
Well, the way it worked was this. The president sent a letter over to Congress basically saying, hey, just so you know, military action has been taken against Iran, and claimed he had the authority to do it under a very important piece of legislation.
So everything hangs on this thing called the War Powers Act. But here's the kicker. This law is supposed to put a leash on a president's power. It says a president can only act on their own if there's been a declaration of war, a specific authorization, or, and this is the key part, a national emergency caused by a direct attack.
And this is where it gets really interesting. You see this direct clash, right? The law demands an urgent threat or a national emergency. But the justification in the letter, it was more general. It cited Iran being a sponsor of terrorism and its nuclear ambitions, but it didn't identify a specific, immediate danger that made this attack necessary right now.
You know, this whole thing isn't new. It actually throws us right back into a fundamental debate that started when the country was founded.
See, the people who wrote the Constitution were really worried about this exact scenario. They deliberately gave the power to declare war to Congress, not the president. Why? Because they were terrified of giving that much power to just one person. They wanted any decision to go to war to be debated out in the open, so everyone knew the costs.
In fact, you can go back and read Alexander Hamilton. He argued that this very system, forcing Congress to debate it, was a vital check on power. It ensures the public is warned, the issue is discussed, and leaders are held accountable for such a monumental decision.
Okay, so there's the whole constitutional debate, but back on the ground, the consequences of this are just spiraling.
I mean, this has kicked off a massive humanitarian crisis. You've got up to 1 million Americans, plus hundreds of thousands of people from other countries, who are now essentially trapped in the region because all the airports and the airspace have been shut down.
But is this whole thing really just contained to the Middle East? It's starting to look like it might be part of a much bigger picture.
Because, and this is wild, on the exact same day this humanitarian crisis was unfolding in the Middle East, another conflict was quietly launched on a completely different continent. The U.S. Southern Command announced a totally new operation in Latin America. So now you have U.S. Special Forces on the ground in South America. They're advising and supporting Ecuadorian troops, and their mission is to conduct raids against powerful drug cartels, which have now been designated narco-terrorists. So it all comes down to this, right? You have military operations igniting on 2 different continents, apparently from a single executive decision. It leaves us with a critical question, one that echoes from the nation's founding all the way to the battlefields of today. Where does the ultimate authority to wage war truly lie? Who has the final say?